Man, the 80s were so cool. Literally everything was better. The movies were better, the music was better, the food was better, even the commercials were better. At least that's what Hollywood has been telling me for the past 7 to 8 years.
Soup in a cup or soup in a bowl. There's no soup more satisfying. Nor soup. So good you go.
Alright, let's just move on. Maybe if we ignore him, he won't hurt us. Anyways, even Blumhouse had to take part in the 80s nostalgia trend, more than once. But I'm not going to talk about Black Phone because it's actually a really good movie, and no one wants to see people be positive on the internet. That's gross. So if I'm not going to talk about Black Phone, what will I talk about? Well, if you've been paying attention and watching my last 2 videos, you know that we're talking about Totally Killer. Boy, I sure hope this doesn't make the exact same mistakes as the last 2 movies.
35 years ago, 3 girls were found brutally murdered. On October 27th, 1987, Tiffany Clark was found butchered in her family garage.
Alright, right off the bat, I'm gonna have to deduct points for having a bullshit narration intro. This ain't fucking Lord of the Rings. We don't need a voiceover breaking down the lore. It's a horror movie. People died. We get it. I don't care that it ties in with the podcast character. There's this really old word, brevity. Basically means if you can do more with less, then do less. Don't explain shit to me that I'm gonna learn soon anyways. Before you go to the comments and complain that I'm being nitpicky and that it doesn't matter because it's short, then you've missed the point of these reviews entirely. If you want to watch someone just point and laugh at all the stupid and illogical shit in the movie, there are a million other channels on YouTube, and it's a very valid form of content. I like it as well, but that's just not what I'm trying to do here. If I wanted to complain about everything I thought was dumb, I could make these videos an hour longer, but I won't. So this movie follows Jamie. She's, wait, isn't it the girl from the last movie? What are they growing these women in a lab? Jamie's pretty normal. She seems to have a good social life and friends. Her parents are both alive, unlike mine. But they're very protective of her because their friends were all massacred around Halloween in the 80s. Seems pretty reasonable to me. Back in the 80s, I got bit by a dog, and now every time I see one, I whip out my 12 gauge. Anyways, Jamie goes out to a concert and her dad accompanies her. Back at home, Jamie's mom is attacked by the killer. This whole time, I've kind of been wondering how Jason Blum views these movies. You know, when he's home, away from all the cameras. You'd think that deep down he knows he's just making slop. But Vin Diesel compared his work on Fast and the Furious to J.R.R. Tolkien and Lord of the Rings. So, you never really know.
You know what gets harder? The work off screen. The thinking, the expanding. There's a reason why Tolkien stopped writing after a while. Because it's so hard to continue mythologies. Nobody thinks about it in that context, but it's real. It's not the easiest thing in the world to.
This is the Lord of the Rings of action movie.
This is the Lord of the Rings of action. Well said. From your mouth to God's ears. It's so true.
I mean, do I really have to talk about this? They seem to have learned nothing from their last 2 killer designs, which is kind of weird. You could look at this ad they made to promote the movie.
Huh?
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
Someone at Blumhouse was convinced they had a roster of iconic slasher characters. They don't. I don't really know who Puka is, but I'm pretty sure I sold him some crack outside of a Wendy's last week. But yeah, Jamie's mom fucking dies, even though she apparently has been training to become John Wick and has weapons hidden all around the house. But don't worry, there's a way to save her. All Jamie has to do is use the time machine that her best friend Amela made. Wait, what? Yes, this movie rests on the concept that Jamie's high school best friend made a time machine. You know the CIA kills you if you almost invent the cure for cancer, right? What would they do to someone who invented a fucking time machine? The time machine doesn't work properly, but late one night the killer appears out of nowhere and attacks Jamie. He accidentally stabs the time machine, which fixes it and sends her back to the 80s. I think this is too ridiculous, even for this movie, but I don't have any meaningful takeaways to share with you, so I'll just let it go. Jamie goes to school to find her mom. The plan is that if she can befriend her mom, she can stop the killer and prevent her from ever being killed in the future. Here's the thing with this movie. It's actually pretty good. It's not amazing, but I don't want to sit here and complain about little things I find dumb. I want to talk about good and bad writing practices and show you how they could have been done better. I've already done more dumb nitpicking than I feel comfortable with, so I'm going to quickly summarize a few scenes so I can just move on to the big things I'd like to talk about. The structure of this movie is pretty simple. Jamie is very familiar with the events that lead to the 3 deaths in the 80s, so this gives her 3 opportunities to try and stop the killer. But it also presents this movie's biggest problem. Horror and tension come from uncertainty and unpredictability, when things can happen seemingly out of nowhere. When your horror movie is about rehashing 3 things we already know are going to happen, that kills any potential for real horror. This movie also falls into the same trap that the last movie did. Everyone who dies in this movie is a non-character that you know is destined to die the second the movie starts. No one other than these 3 predestined murder victims dies in this movie, except for one, but even that's just a throwaway gag kill. This is a good way to keep your audience from caring. Good job, Jason Blum. Jamie goes to this party. We know who is going to die and when they're going to die. Her time travel presence causes the murder to happen in a different room, but that is all that changes. At the start of the movie, we are told generally how things happen, and the movie follows through with those events with minimal changes. How is someone supposed to be invested in a movie when the opening narration tells you exactly what is going to happen and when it is going to happen? Imagine if the Star Wars opening text was just like, then Luke finds Obi-Wan, and then they hire Han Solo and Chewbacca, then they rescue Princess Leia, but Obi-Wan is killed by Darth Vader, and the Death Star follows them, so Luke is about to blow up the Death Star, and Han Solo comes back, and he shoots Darth Vader's ship, and he saves Luke, which lets him blow up the Death Star. The movie continues on and falls into a pattern. Jamie goes to a place where a murder will happen. She tries to get the people to change things. They are all too stupid to be controlled and end up falling into the same mistakes, rinse and repeat. At the end of the movie, we find out that the present day is actually fairly different because of Jamie's time travel. She has an older brother, she has a different name. I'm not sure why they couldn't have done this for the entire movie. It also isn't just predictable because it spells everything out before it happens. It also engages in almost every other overdone slasher trope. Even my absolute favorite one. The victim is alone in a room. The killer approaches them, but the victim thinks that it's someone else under the mask. So they sit around going, oh, that's a knock it off. Take off that mask, silly. And then they're fucking stabbed to death. I love that shit. It's so good. I know the concept of subverting expectations can be kind of touchy these days, especially after a movie you may have heard of. You know, it's called The Last Jedi. But there are some places where it's a good idea, like when a movie starts by telling you exactly how things will happen. Skipping to the end, Jamie's friend Amela has been fixing the time machine in the present. She's accompanied by this guy who makes a true crime podcast about the murders. In the 1980s, they have their final confrontation with the killer. They kill him and find out that it's the guy who goes on to be the principal. Then suddenly another killer appears out of nowhere and murders the 3rd girl, who was supposed to die anyways. Oh yeah, I couldn't have let her live, guys. That would have been too unpredictable. Jamie gets the new time machine and the killer is revealed to be the podcast guy. He started the killings again to spark interest in his dying podcast. He dies and Jamie goes back to the future. The end. Alright, so what could this movie have done to be better? There are a few things. The identity of the original killer and his motivations are pretty good. The movie fumbles it by killing him before the reveal and then having the other characters talk about why he wanted to kill them. In my opinion, this kind of removes agency from him as a character and makes the reveal much less meaningful. I think the reveal that the podcaster was just a second killer in the future is really bad. His motivation is dumb. I think cutting this character out entirely would have been much better. Here's my suggestion for an alternative and why I think it would work better. Have the killer return and take out Jamie's mom, maybe even the dad. Just put him on a real killing spree, more dangerous than he ever was before. Have him go after Jamie, but when he attacks her in the time machine, they both get sent back. Now Jamie has to save her mom and her friends while there are 2 killers on the loose. Change things so the future principal is part of the mom's friend group, Now that we have 2 killers, the audience won't be able to guess who he is because he disappears whenever a murder happens. The first murder scene completely changed everything. Add in more kills, make it more brutal, and change up the victim. Now throughout the movie, the killer can target Jamie directly because the one from the future is after her as well. This can add another set piece before you get to the cabin sequence. Once again, add more kills. There should be consequences to time travel. Finally, by the time you get to the final confrontation, you have both killers seemingly win. They unmask and explain their motivation. There's a good final sequence with the killers. They both get killed. This saves the mom and dad, and Jamie gets to go back to the future. So what does this even fix? Well, first off, it shows the audience that they don't know exactly what's going to happen 3 seconds into the movie. A low bar, I know, but here we are. Second, it fixes the killer reveals by making the first more memorable and giving him more to do, and gets rid of the bad killer reveal with weak motivation. Finally, it adds more killing, which is why we're here in the first place. Don't puss out and give me 4 kills in a slasher movie. Fuck you, Blumhouse. Well, that was chapter 1 of the Blumhouse Shittiverse series. I've really been enjoying making these videos, and it looks like I'm slowly but surely finding some kind of audience with them, so I'll keep doing it. I'm already looking at the next chapter and how I want to do it, but before that I'll probably do a longer format video on another movie series. If you like this, you should subscribe. Now I think that's probably all for me today. It's Halloween and I got stuff to do, unlike you. That's why you're sitting here watching some idiot on the internet talk about horror movies. Alright, goodbye.
The Betas all came from their goon caves to get a sip from my grimace shake.